What if someone judged your intelligence, kindness, and trustworthiness before you even finished one sentence? It happens faster than you think. In seconds, the brain scans your face, clothes, posture, voice, and confidence, then creates a story about who you are. But that story may be wrong. Today, you will discover the hidden biases that shape first impressions, open doors, close opportunities, and make us judge others before we truly know them, often without realizing it all in real life. The first bias is the halo effect. This happens when one positive trait makes us assume other positive things about a person. For example, if someone is attractive, well-dressed, calm, or speaks with confidence, we may automatically assume they're smarter, kinder, more competent, or more trustworthy. The person may not have proven any of those things yet, but our brain fills in the blanks. It creates a glow around them, almost like a mental spotlight. This is why first impressions can be so powerful. A confident smile, a clean appearance, or a charismatic voice can make someone seem more capable than they actually are. The halo effect appears everywhere. In school, a student who speaks well may be seen as more intelligent. At work, an employee who looks organized may be treated as more responsible. In relationships, a person who is charming in the beginning may be seen as emotionally mature, even before showing consistency. The danger is not that appearance, posture, or confidence mean nothing. The danger is when we allow one good sign to become the whole story. Someone can be beautiful and dishonest. Someone can be calm and careless. Someone can speak well and still be wrong. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes, a person has real value, but because they do not create a strong first impression, people underestimate them. They may be shy, nervous, simple in appearance, or not very expressive. So the halo effect teaches us something uncomfortable. People are not always judged by who they are. Many times, they are judged by the first signal they send. Before we continue, if you enjoy understanding the hidden forces behind human behavior, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because this helps more people discover how the mind really works. The second bias is the horn effect. If the halo effect makes one good trait contaminate the whole image positively, the horn effect does the opposite. One negative detail can make the entire person look worse in our minds. Maybe someone arrives late once, and we start thinking they are irresponsible. Maybe someone speaks awkwardly, and we assume they are insecure or unintelligent. Maybe someone dresses differently, and we judge them as strange before hearing a single meaningful word. One small flaw becomes a mental stain. The horn effect can be extremely unfair because it turns a moment into an identity. A person may be tired, anxious, distracted, or going through a difficult day. But if we catch them in the wrong moment, our brain may decide this is who they are. And once that label is created, it becomes hard to remove. This is why some people never get a second chance. Not because they truly failed, but because the observer made a fast, emotional conclusion and then treated it as fact. This bias is very common in social situations. If someone seems cold at first, we may ignore all future signs of kindness. If someone makes one mistake in a meeting, we may start doubting everything they say afterward. If a person has a physical feature, accent, or behavior that does not match what we expect, our mind may create negative assumptions without evidence. The horn effect reveals how fragile reputation can be. Sometimes, people do not need to know much about us to judge us. They only need one detail that confirms a negative impression. The third bias is the primacy effect, which means the first information we receive has a stronger influence than information that comes later. This is why introductions matter so much. The first few seconds of a meeting, the first words of a conversation, the first image on a profile, the first attitude someone sees from you, all of this becomes a mental foundation. Later information is not ignored, but it is interpreted through that original frame. Imagine two people with the same qualities. One begins a conversation warmly and confidently, then later makes a small mistake. The other begins awkwardly and nervously, then later says something intelligent. Many people will still remember the first person more positively because the first impression created a favorable frame. The second person may have to work harder to overcome the initial impression. This is not always logical, but it is deeply human. The primacy effect is one reason why people say, "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." That phrase is not completely true, because impressions can change. But it is true that changing them requires more energy. Once the brain creates a quick story, it does not like to rewrite it unless strong evidence appears. So in real life, the first impression becomes a kind of psychological anchor. It tells the observer what to expect from you. And then, without noticing, they begin searching for signs that support that first belief. The fourth bias is confirmation bias. After we form an impression, we start looking for evidence that proves we were right. If we think someone is arrogant, we notice every moment when they speak too much. If we think someone is kind, we forgive behaviors we might criticize in another person. If we think someone is competent, we interpret their mistakes as accidents. If we think someone is incompetent, we interpret the same mistakes as proof. This is one of the most powerful biases because it protects our ego. The brain likes to feel accurate. It does not enjoy admitting, "Maybe I judged this person too quickly." So instead of neutrally observing reality, we often collect selective evidence. We pay attention to what confirms our belief and ignore what challenges it. This is how a first impression can become stronger over time, even when it is wrong. In relationships, confirmation bias can create emotional traps. If someone has been hurt before, they may enter a new relationship expecting betrayal. Then they interpret small delays, short messages, or quiet moments as signs of rejection. In the workplace, a manager who already sees an employee as lazy may notice every pause, every mistake, every late response, while ignoring good results. In friendships, if we decide someone is selfish, we may remember the moments they failed us and forget the moments they helped us. Confirmation bias is dangerous because it makes judgment feel like observation. We think we are seeing the truth, but we may only be seeing the parts that match our expectation. The question is not just, "What do I see in this person?" The deeper question is, "What am I choosing not to see because I already made up my mind?" The fifth bias is attractiveness bias. This is closely related to the halo effect, but it deserves its own attention because physical appearance has a surprisingly strong influence on social judgment. People who are considered attractive are often perceived as more confident, more socially skilled, more successful, and sometimes even more honest. This does not mean everyone consciously believes beauty equals character. It means the brain often reacts to beauty before reason has time to intervene. This bias can affect opportunities. In interviews, dating, social media, sales, leadership, and even everyday conversations, appearance can change the way people listen. An attractive person may receive more patience, more attention, and more benefit of the doubt. Their jokes may seem funnier. Their confidence may seem more natural. Their mistakes may seem less serious. Meanwhile, someone who does not match conventional beauty standards may need to prove themselves more strongly to receive the same level of respect. But this bias also has a hidden cost for attractive people. Sometimes others assume they have an easy life, judge them as superficial, or reduce their identity to appearance. So attractiveness can create advantages, but it can also create distorted expectations. The deeper lesson is that appearance is powerful because it is visible immediately. Character is slower. Intelligence is slower. Loyalty is slower. Discipline is slower. But the brain is impatient, so it grabs what it can see first. The sixth bias is voice bias. Before people fully process what you say, they're often reacting to how you sound. A calm, steady voice can make someone seem confident and trustworthy. A shaky voice can make someone seem unsure, even if their words are correct. A deeper voice may be perceived as more authoritative. A warm tone may create a feeling of safety. A fast tone may signal anxiety or excitement. A flat tone may be interpreted as boredom, arrogance, or lack of emotion. This is why two people can say the same sentence and create completely different impressions. "I understand" can sound caring, cold, defensive, or professional depending on tone. "I can handle this" can sound confident or desperate. "That is interesting" can sound genuine or sarcastic. The voice carries emotional information, and people often trust that emotional signal more than the actual words. Voice bias matters because many people are judged unfairly for nervousness. Someone may know the answer, but sound uncertain. Someone may be honest, but speak too softly. Someone may be intelligent, but have an accent, a different rhythm, or a tone that others misinterpret. The brain is constantly asking, does this person sound safe? Does this person sound powerful? Does this person sound like they belong? And those questions can shape judgment before the content is truly understood. The seventh bias is similarity bias. We tend to feel more comfortable with people who seem similar to us. Similar interests, similar values, similar humor, similar background, similar style, similar language. Even similar gestures can create quick trust. The brain thinks, this person is like me, so they're probably safe. This can make social connection easier, but it can also create invisible favoritism. In a workplace, a leader may unconsciously favor the employee who communicates like them. In friendships, people may trust someone faster because they share the same taste in music, lifestyle, or opinions. In hiring, someone may choose the candidate who feels familiar instead of the one who is objectively better. Similarity creates comfort, and comfort can be mistaken for truth. The problem is that people who are different from us may have exactly what we need. They may think in ways we do not. They may challenge our blind spots. They may bring skills, experiences, and perspectives that are missing from our world. But if our brain equates familiar with good and unfamiliar with risky, we may reject value simply because it does not look like us. Similarity bias is subtle because it feels like chemistry. We say, I just like their energy, or they felt easy to talk to. And maybe that is true, but sometimes what we call energy is just recognition. We're seeing a reflection of ourselves and calling it trust. The eighth bias is authority bias. This happens when we give more weight to the opinion of someone who appears powerful, successful, educated, famous, confident, or high status. A person in a suit, a person with a title, a person with many followers, a person who speaks with certainty, all of these signals can make us believe their words more easily. The brain often assumes status equals competence. Authority bias can be useful when the authority is real and deserved. Listening to experts can save time and reduce mistakes. But the danger begins when the appearance of authority replaces evidence. Someone may speak with confidence and still be wrong. Someone may have a title and still be biased. Someone may be popular and still be shallow. Someone may look successful and still be selling an illusion. This bias is especially powerful online. A polished profile, expensive visuals, confident speech, and impressive numbers can create instant credibility. People may believe advice not because it is accurate, but because it is packaged with status. In real life, the same thing happens when someone enters a room with strong posture, expensive clothes, or social recognition. The room may listen before the person proves anything. Authority bias reminds us that confidence is not the same as truth. Status is not the same as wisdom. Popularity is not the same as depth. Before accepting an idea, we should ask, is this person actually reliable, or do they simply look reliable? The ninth bias is the fundamental attribution error. This is the tendency to explain other people's behavior by their personality, while explaining our own behavior by the situation. If someone cuts us off in traffic, we think they are rude. If we cut someone off, we think we were in a hurry or did not see them. If someone responds late, we think they are careless. If we respond late, we think we were busy. If someone seems quiet, we think they are cold. If we are quiet, we think we're tired or overwhelmed. This bias is powerful because it makes us harsher with others than we are with ourselves. We see our own context, but we do not see theirs. We know our intentions, our stress, our fears, our private problems. But with other people, we mostly see behavior. And because the brain hates missing information, it invents a story. The person was not just late, they are irresponsible. They were not just nervous, they are weak. They were not just direct, they are arrogant. The fundamental attribution error can damage relationships because it turns moments into moral judgments. Instead of asking, what might be going on, we assume this is who they are. Of course, repeated behavior matters. Patterns matter, but one isolated behavior does not always reveal character. Sometimes, the most intelligent thing we can do is pause before turning a single action into a permanent label. The 10th bias is the stereotype bias. This happens when we judge someone based on a category instead of their individuality. The category can be age, gender, profession, appearance, culture, social class, accent, personality style, or any group identity. The brain uses categories because they simplify the world, but people are not simple. A stereotype may contain a fragment of social expectation, but can never capture a whole human being. Stereotype bias can be obvious, but can also be quiet. We may assume a young person lacks discipline. We may assume an older person cannot adapt. We may assume a quiet person has nothing to say. We may assume a confident person is arrogant. We may assume a rich person is selfish or a poor person is irresponsible. We may assume someone's profession tells us everything about their personality. These assumptions feel efficient, but they can be deeply inaccurate. The painful part is that stereotypes do not only affect how we judge others. They can also affect how people see themselves. If someone is repeatedly treated as less capable, less intelligent, less trustworthy, or less valuable, they may begin to carry that pressure internally. This is why judgment is not harmless. The way we see people can influence how they behave, how they feel, and what opportunities they believe are possible. And now comes the uncomfortable question. If our brains are full of shortcuts, can we ever judge people fairly? The answer is not perfect fairness, but greater awareness. We cannot remove every bias from a mind. Bias is part of how the brain works. But we can slow down. We can question our first impressions. We can separate evidence from assumption. We can notice when beauty, confidence, status, similarity, or one mistake is influencing us too much. The real danger is not having biases. Everyone has them. The danger is believing you do not. Because when a person thinks they are completely objective, they become easier to manipulate by their own mind. They stop questioning their reactions. They confuse instinct with truth. They confuse comfort with trust. They confuse confidence with competence. They confuse one detail with the whole person. So the next time you meet someone, ask yourself, what did I decide about this person before I truly knew them? And also ask, what are people deciding about me before I even get the chance to show who I am? These questions can change the way you speak, listen, observe, and connect. Maybe the most surprising truth is this. We are all being judged in seconds, but we are also judging others in seconds. Every conversation begins with invisible assumptions. Every first impression carries hidden weight. Every face, voice, posture, and gesture becomes part of a story the mind is trying to write quickly. But a fast story is not always a true story. If this video made you think about how quickly we judge people, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your opinion in the comments. Which bias do you think affects people the most today? Appearance, voice, status, first impression, or similarity? Write your answer below, because your comment may make someone realize that their first impression was not the full truth.